You're listening to Heroes in the Moment.
What's up, heroes? I'm Michael.
And I'm Nathan.
Today, Moon Knight episode 5.
Dude, wow.
Wow. This
I can't believe
is
it.
by far the best episode of Moon Knight in general. Episode
Agreed.
5,
Agreed.
absolutely mind-boggling, trippy, amazing. From the acting, from the CGI, from the everything in between was incredible. And I will say, like, this may be, I can't say for sure because it's been a while since I've gone back and seen a lot of the Disney Plus shows.
Yeah.
But I feel
Same.
like this episode in particular might just have been the best episode of a Marvel Disney Plus show. Might just be.
Like I said, obviously it's better than any Hawkeye, any Falcon Winter Soldier.
Yes.
Then I think really the only competition it has is a couple WandaVision
Right.
episodes.
Either WandaVision episode 5
you know.
or 6 or Loki episode 5, maybe.
See,
So-
I wasn't even a huge fan. I thought it was really good, but I truly do think that this was better. It was extremely well written. It was deep. It was emotional.
Oh, yeah.
And
for
it really fleshed out this character just in the way we haven't seen in other Marvel characters.
It felt so much like a movie that I felt like I was so intrigued and so involved within this episode that I genuinely forgot I was watching a television show.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Nah, I get what you're saying.
I was so like interested and so involved in these characters. And if Oscar Isaac does not win an award for this performance, it is a mistake.
Listen, I said it once, I'll say it again. I truly do think this is the best MCU acting performance we've ever seen.
I think this may be Oscar Isaac's best acting performance, period. Honestly. I mean, I haven't seen him in everything he's been in.
I haven't seen everything either.
I mean,
but
out of everything
to
we've
be
seen
able to play two different people.
maybe 3. I mean, we don't know. We didn't get that
possibly
answered.
3.
But to be able to play two
Extremely
different
well.
people so different well and to have those expressions and to do that,
All the different antics, the different accents.
it's so incredible. And the
It's weird,
transitions
bro.
is amazing. And so spoilers ahead as we dive deep into this episode and break it down for you guys. Again, what an amazing episode. Like I said, it was trippy, right? You start out first like what's going on? At the end of episode 4, we were like, okay, what just happened? Of course, they were shot.
Yeah.
We don't know if this is actually reality now or if this is in their head. We have now been answered that this is neither. It is actually their journey to the underworld.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So that implies that the Egyptian mythology of the underworld is true in the universe of the MCU.
Yeah. So they show it's true. So I guess it leaves a question. Is it the only true one? Or is it just for the people who believe in the Egyptian gods?
I feel like it doesn't make sense for it's just the people who believe in the Egyptian gods.
But there's no way it's universal though.
Exactly,
At the same
it
time.
have to be universal.
It can't be, bro.
So
There's no way.
It doesn't make
That's
sense.
giving
in
them a
that
little too much
sense.
power.
That is, and that's what I say about
But they're
Moon Knight.
like full gods.
The one is not necessarily a con, but the fact that it's so like out there compared to the MCU, except we've only had 2 singular references to the MCU in the entirety of Moon Knight, and that was in episode 3 when they name dropped Madripoor from Falcon Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
And then now in this episode, I'll go ahead and say Turwet, of course, the hippopotamus, as they say, name drops the ancestral plane as a Egyptian afterworld, but as like a transitional world as well. Which we know the ancestral plane is from Black Panther. That is where Black Panther goes.
Yeah.
And that also implies that the god of the Panthers, the Black Panther god, is another Egyptian god. And that possibly Black Panther himself is an avatar for that god. So that's pretty interesting in itself.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. I do hope Black Panther 2 ties in with this show
I feel like
on
it
some
will.
level.
It will. And I've heard nothing but good things so far about Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which is crazy.
Me too, I know.
Ryan Coogler and Ryan Coogler we trust, I guess, so, for this project. So hopefully it'd be crazy. But anyway, so we got the ancestral plane name dropped, and of course the Black Panther connections, which is pretty cool to have more MCU connections there. But it still, of course, feels very out there. But my favorite part of this episode, though, was getting the origin story of not only Mark, as I thought we'd only get the origin story for Mark, but we also get the origin story for Stephen Grant as well. Besides Mark, which is incredible.
Dude, that backstory scene was honestly one of the saddest, most like well fleshed out moments we've seen. I think in the MCU we finally figure out that Mark Spector like created the personality of Stephen Grant as like his little like stress ball, like where he would turn to when like he couldn't handle just the pressure. Right, he had an abusive mother who blamed him for his brother's death, which I'm sure like many people can relate to. Dude, just watching that dude just like made me want to tear up.
Oh,
like,
it did.
Really.
Like at first, I was like, okay, Mom, I understand her pain, I understand her frustrations, but she's a terrible person.
Like weeks later, she's going back and like beating him up, constantly reminding him he's the reason he died.
That is not good.
That's a kid, dude. Like you don't think he doesn't feel bad for this?
I mean, the episode says, he's 10 years old. His brother looked to be probably 7-ish, 8-ish. And he was 10 when they did this. Of course, they're kids. They don't know any better to certain things in certain extents, and they got to get into mischief. I mean, they're kids, right? You have to have that. You have to learn, these lessons. But unfortunately, it led to, of course, the death of his brother, which, of course, a lot of people I'm sure can relate to this kind of story in their childhood, which is super, super emotional and sad. I'm sorry to anybody who has experienced this. Is it something that you should never experience in life? But, to see that, and of course, it has that superhero origin tie-ins. It's very superhero origin-like because, of course, you have that super painful death, super grieving process, and then, of course, the eventual build-up to when he does become Moon Knight. And it shows that in this episode. But I also like how it is twisted and different, and it's more of a different superhero origin story than we've ever seen adapted on screen before, which is super, super awesome and well written.
And I think that's due in part to seeing Stephen Grant's character, right? Because he shares the same body as Mark Spector, but he doesn't have those memories. So we, along with Steven, for the first time are looking back on the memories. So seeing Oscar Isaac's performance, as Stephen Grant, watching, all of Mark's childhood trauma, dude, is crazy.
Right.
Like watching Steven crawl
and of course,
through the cave.
Him not wanting to believe it at first as well.
Yeah.
And, kind of blaming Mark as well. On top of that, which is why, of course, we see Mark throughout the journey in Moon Knight constantly say, once I'm done here, you can have the body. I'm done. And constantly being like he doesn't want to be alive. He's kind of suicidal in a way.
No,
and he legit
is.
And he's experienced that. And he almost did commit suicide, we see later in the episode. And which, of course, we, feel that from Mark and feel that bad in that mental health institution. And it's also super amazing to get that representation for mental health in the MCU for a superhero. Because we've never really necessarily seen that particularly before. Because usually with the superhero origin story, okay, the parents die or one of the parents die. Okay, later on in life, they pick up a suit or they pick up a mantle and they raise up and then they try to, commit justice or do vengeance or however you want to do it.
It's usually the same thing.
Same thing. Or, depending across this. But to see this and him go through this experience of mental health and almost at the point of suicide and then being saved by Khonshu, we see in the Egyptian cave, and then take up the mantle of Moon Knight, kind of not on his own will, but of feeling like he has to, is super different, super original.
Just out of like obligation. Well, actually no, it was out of necessity.
Oh yeah,
like his only choice was to die or to do this. And like even when he said yes to serving Khonshu, it like homie was out of his mind. And Stephen Graham pointed out too, he's like, dude, he's been manipulating you from the beginning,
right?
Like which like obviously it made me like Khonshu a little less. Like he took advantage of a near dead. Like,
but at the same time, he took advantage of him. But without Khonshu, Mark would be dead. So I mean,
but like, at the same time, I wonder like if Mark would prefer that versus being in servitude to an Egyptian god, being forced to kill more people,
right?
Which he's already traumatized by.
But at the same time, it gave him a second chance at life to kind of redeem himself. Plus, Steven was within him as well, and Steven is his own person as well. So to end two lives essentially is not wrong, and especially in your own life is kind of, in a way, selfish because you're kind of robbing yourself from, experiences of what you could get in the future, which is super sad. So I really don't want to see, him die, of course, by suicide because I don't want to see that happen to anyone. So, I'm glad it explores that as well because there's so much that it explores when it comes to the mental health world. And not only that, but just the world of Mark and his individual person and then Steven as well. And having these two different characters and written so well. They were written, and I'm so glad to see what's next because I have no idea, and I love that.
I'm excited, man. I really am.
I really love that. So next up, we do see Turwat, and we learn, of course, she is the god of like women, fertility, that kind of area, and she was going to be their kind of spirit guide, I guess, per se, to the afterlife to kind of see whether they're worthy of going on to what they say was like the next level.
It's like the Field of Reeds.
The Field of Reeds.
Nebraska.
It looks like Nebraska.
It is Nebraska.
Except there's mountains around it, so it couldn't be Nebraska. Maybe it's Tennessee.
Nebraska's flat, right? Yeah, maybe it is
Nebraska's
Tennessee.
flat. Maybe it's Tennessee. But I don't even think there's like wheat fields. I'm thinking like Mississippi.
Mississippi doesn't have mountains.
No, they don't have mountains either.
I'm trying to think somewhere.
North Carolina? No.
It would be out, I feel like.
Ooh, it could be like out Colorado area, but not Colorado. It could be Colorado. Wisconsin.
Nah.
No, that's not
No,
Wisconsin.
it'd be in Europe.
Wyoming?
It'd be in Europe.
No.
It'd be in Europe.
Europe?
Yes. With the mountains.
Like the Alps, like near the Alps somewhere?
Yes, it would actually be that.
Possibly could be. I don't know. Anyway, it's its own place. Anyway, but she is their spirit guide. So we see that, and they're on this big boat full of their memories, is what they call it. And it is called, what did you say it was called? The Juwat?
The Juwat. The Juwat was like where they were. Like that's like where you die, you go before, I guess, you get judged.
Right, but it's different for everybody, she says, because of course it's his mental institution.
So she said everyone processes it differently. Mm-hmm. And Spectre's like, it's because we're insane. Yeah. That's why it's a psych ward. Which
she kind of, he's got that insanity factor, but it's not that he himself is insane. It's that his situation is insane, I guess, per se, more so than it really being that way. So,
bro, they're insane.
They're insane mentally, but not really at the same time because they're competent. So I don't know.
They're competent.
Yeah.
But there's multiple of them.
Yeah, it's true. Poor them. Yeah. Anyway, but I loved Turwat, though, personally. I thought she was great. I really
kind
do.
of a legend.
She was a legend. Like, I didn't really know. Like, it kind of was like a British accent mixed with American accent. I couldn't tell what accent hers was.
I know.
It was kind of weird.
It was kind of odd, but I don't know. I kind of wish you got to see a little more of her.
I know. I really enjoyed her.
About
instead of going in and ripping out their white hearts.
That was weird. I guess you point out they're white because they're dead.
I guess because they're dead, and it kind of they just took them out of them because like in the Egyptian realm in the Egyptian mythology, they believe, of course, ripping out every organ that's inside of you except for the heart, so they can take the heart and judge you in the afterlife. So I'm glad that they're tying it in with the Egyptian mythology, which is really cool there. The history of that.
I thought that part was like definitely going to point to Jake, right? Because they put the two hearts on it, they balance it with the feather, but like it refuses to do it. She's like, we need balance. I was like, okay, third personality. We need a third. But it never goes and hits on that.
Right, and there was no Jake present in this episode, and it leaves us believing, like, is there a Jake? Yeah. Because at the same time, I feel like there has to be because of that one particular scene. That's the only scene.
The coffin.
Not that coffin also as well. Yeah, that was a sign, but not only just that, but the stabbing and Mark and Steven both not knowing what happened. But that's the only other reason, the other way.
But like we said, I don't know if I should spoil this or not. But at the end of the episode, right? Like it finally balances out after it's just one personality. So it's like, what the crap? We're getting like teasings of Jake the whole time, exactly, and then
it just doesn't happen.
Balances. It doesn't make sense.
That was the one weird thing. But then again, if this is the writing that we're going, of course, this can be again the fan theories coming in to ruin what we're expecting. And this could not be their plan. I mean, they could have not had Jake Lockley at all in this show. And then, of course, his fans will be disappointed, but that's because of our own doing. So we could see Jake in the next episode, which there are signs pointing towards him in the show. So I don't know. I hope so.
Dude, I swear. At first, when watching through the one memory where it's him like drinking, staying outside of the car, I was like, all right, bam, you know, that's Jake.
And I agreed. I agreed with you.
I think that was a nod, though. It wasn't Jake we later found out, but it was definitely a nod because he was drinking. He was on a street like in Boston or New York, and there's a cab right there. Right. So it was definitely a nod. It wasn't him, but I really do think he exists.
I feel like he has to. I mean, like the coffin again is another big sign. They didn't even explore the coffin. They didn't go back to the coffin.
Yeah, I thought for sure they were gonna go back and touch it.
I thought as soon as like Turwet was like, okay, you got to go find out how to balance it through your memories and stuff. I thought as soon as they go in, they'd walk in that door, find that coffin, open it up, it'd be Jake. But no, that didn't happen. So
I know.
We'll see what happens with that. But it was really cool to just seeing them go through their memories, and not only both of Steven's memories and Mark's memories, and then also entering the room with all the dead people that Mark has killed, which is also super emotional as well, because he remembers.
I just thought about it. So all the people that he explicitly killed, were like zombied out, but his little brother was perfectly fine sitting there.
That's because he didn't physically kill him.
Looking back on it now, like that should be, I guess, a comfort to Mark that he didn't, kill his brother. He was still there, like alive with all the other people he actually killed were dead. He's different.
Right. Which is should be a comfort. But of course, Steven follows the boy. He's like, who is that? He had no recollection that he had a brother.
That's so sad, man.
Yeah, it is. And because he wasn't created until after his brother's death. So part of me wants to say, like, Mark created both Steven as the comfort, as a way to kind of escape and like that stress ball, as you said. But he also created him to kind of replace that void of not having a brother anymore.
You think
kind
so?
of give himself another person to kind of confide in a way, but not realizing.
But he wouldn't be able to confide in him.
He is later, but at first it's
but
subconscious.
sure he didn't plan it.
Right. I don't think necessarily later, but I feel like Steven does now, kind of fill that void now, if that makes sense, because he is kind of like a brother.
I definitely do, but I don't know, man. I don't think he would create another personality.
I don't think he created him as a void
community.
for his brother. He didn't do that for that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that he created him as that stress ball for, of course, to get away from his mother. But I'm saying that, later on, that fills that void of having a brother.
Yeah.
And that's what Steven kind of provides as well for that. So, which is really cool as well. And we see, of course, Steven coming to fruition. We see that this is how Steven is created. And then we get to see Steven's perspective of saying, I'm not real, kind of making him feel like he's not important. He's not actually there. He's just a creation. He was created by Mark. He never really.
That was so sad.
That was
he's
sad.
having like this whole existential crisis,
Right.
realizing, for the first time we get to see Steven realize, hey,
right.
my personality was created by you to deal with this trauma.
I mean,
what am I?
It's completely realistic and justifiable, because if I found out, I was not the main personality, I was the created one, that would be pretty devastating.
Yeah.
Shocking.
And they touched on it in the dialogue too. He's like, the whole time I thought I was the main one, and Mark was like, dude, I'm sorry, man.
And thinking his mother was still alive even after her death, and thinking he had a good relationship with her as well was also super emotional.
Dude, imagine how that would rock your world. I mean, he was calling his mom every single day after work. And what was it before? I don't know. But speaking of, who was he calling then at the same time?
Well, he never answered, right? Remember, no one ever answered. He was leaving voicemails.
So you're saying Stephen Grant just never talked to his mom then?
No, I don't think he did.
But surely he'd be smarter, than realize, no one ever calls back.
Well, I mean, of course, he had the postcards from his mother, which of course we think was sent by Mark, which probably was. And there's still some unanswered questions from episode 1, the fish, the dates. I know. The other stuff.
I hope they touch back on it. I
feel like they will. I
don't see how they would have time.
Maybe when they finally introduce Jake Lockley, they'll go back and show all the stuff that he did.
He just ate the fish because he's weird.
I don't know,
probably.
He could have, but I don't think that's.
I'm hungry.
But yeah. So all of that from Steven. I feel so bad for Steven from that experience. But I also feel bad for Mark seeing how terrible his mother was, because no true mother who loves her son would ever blame her son like that, ever.
Yeah.
No true mother who actually did love her son would ever blame her son.
I mean, like I said, it's really sad because it's realistic, and that is how some people deal with their sadness and their grief. Yeah. They instantly turn around and blame it on someone who they hold responsible, and then they treat him like absolute crap. But to do that to a little boy, to your own son, is just so sad. And that makes perfect sense. Why he would make a personality, why he would later leave, become a mercenary, try to get away from everything, atone for his sins.
Perfectly explains the mental issues going on with him. Perfectly explains why he has all the experience. Which of course I have never been in that experience, and I hope to never be in that experience. But I would imagine I would want to be more like Stephen Grant's father. Mark's father.
He's a legend.
He stuck out for Mark, right? He still loved him. He gave him cake,
When they had that birthday party, just them two.
And his mother didn't. He called his mother and she didn't even come. Gosh, I just wanted to
Decker, yeah.
I know, terrible. But he was a legend there, and I hope I would be more like him, supportive of him, and loving him, still love him the same, even though, he does blame himself. I would still, make sure he's okay, listen, you're a boy. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
Which is super emotional. But now we have to touch on Dr. Arthur Harrow, the doctor psychiatrist version of it. I don't necessarily understand that.
Yeah, I don't either, dude. The whole time we've seen Stephen Grant we've seen Mark Spector interact with him. But just today, well, not today, but for this episode for the first time, we get to see kind of how he gets there.
Right.
He'll be in the middle of his memories and get shaken up, then it'll instantly be there, which is odd. So the whole time we see Mark there, and then later we see Steven there for the first time, and Harry seems kind of surprised to see. But I guess I just wonder where it fits in. Is it just another part of that psych ward part of the Juwat, they're currently in, trying to deal with what they're seeing?
I really don't understand that part. I mean, because we know now by the information that was given by Turawat that the reality of them being shot and they're dead. They are dead is real. That's reality. Everything we saw in episodes 1 through 4 is reality. And then, of course, this has been their, the next level, the transitional period between them and the afterlife. So that's the really confusing part. So is it like a mechanism in like both of their brains that they could go back and like have them to be in this mental institution? Because Turwat did say that this Juwop is, you know, a collection of their memories. So when we're in the psych ward, we see, of course, the collections through the episodes, like the Alps picture, Arthur Harrow's shoes, the cane,
pyramids,
the pyramid there, the alligator head in the room, the Khonshu picture, all of that stuff, Layla, all of those other characters. We see that.
It's just pulling things from real life.
It's pulling things from the real life and actuality. So I don't really know, still don't really understand it though. That's what still is really confusing to me as to why he's having these as well on top of the stuff with Turawat. Because it made sense in the last episode. Like when you think about this episode and the answers it gave us, it makes sense because after he ran away, he found Steven and then he was, you know, found Turawat. And then next thing you know, he wakes up again and Steven, or with Arthur Harrow, Dr. Arthur Harrow, and, you know, having that conversation. And then they sedate him again. And then he goes back to the hippo. So that's what was confusing too.
Like, I don't know. Would it be just another room in the psych ward, or is it a different place? I would assume if it's a psych ward and he's a doctor, Harrow's a doctor in the psych ward.
Yeah,
I would assume it's just another room, and maybe he's just like teleporting back and forth between the two rooms.
I don't know.
But at the end of the day, I don't think there's like too much to read into. I really just think, like you said, they're pulling things from their real life and trying to make sense. The different personalities, kind of what's going on. Like thus, the therapist, like they're talking it out, trying to figure it out. So I guess there's too much hidden meaning.
There might not be, but I feel like there's just a lot of unanswered stuff with that in particular that I'd like to be answered personally, but which they're still in this kind of area. So we'll see what happens in the next episode, which of course is the finale. One episode remains, which is crazy, but it's been super good so far. Like there's not been a bad episode yet. So I'm super proud of that. So
I'm just really glad we got both backstories. Dude, I was waiting. I didn't think it would take until episode 5, but
I'm glad that they did it, and they did it well.
Seeing how they did it now, like, really makes sense.
It did, and they did a really, really good job because, of course, typical formula. You see the origin story, you see them become the hero. This formula, we see him as the hero, we see him, and then how they become a hero. And I think that was great, and it was new, it was different, and I do love. That's one thing I love about the show is it is different. So I like that.
I do. Also, loved how they showed the backstory to what happened to Layla's father, and all that stuff. Because you know, I had to wonder about that. We knew he killed him, but we got to hear the backstory that, you know, he was for hire. They were meant to just like raid a tomb, and then like they're like no witnesses. So we got seeing like just the destruction Mark caused, like just further like increased your, I guess, how you felt for him,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Because you see how wrecked he was, and then seeing how he was taken advantage of in that moment, it hurt, man.
It did.
I don't know, that was tough,
but they did a great job doing it and executing it. Which I'm super, super glad that they did. I'm super glad that we got to see it because I was getting a little bit nervous that we weren't going to see it, period. But I'm glad that we did and finally saw that origin. So that was fantastic. And then we, of course, go back and to the boat and the scales balance after Steven falls off the boat and gets dragged into the, I don't know what she call it, like the dead people, like grab him and take him under.
Yeah, I guess, is that like their hell? Or
I guess I'm assuming
does their soul go somewhere else after they get turned into sand?
That's what I'm assuming. It's like the underworld, I guess, per se. I'm not exactly sure, but Steven dies. And man, that made me so sad because I was like, I don't know if we're going to get him back. Truthfully, I don't really know if we will. I don't know.
I think we will. What I thought was one of the most interesting parts about that is, well, Steven had this like kind of realization that I guess like he told himself he could do whatever like Mark could do, but then like he beats him up with the bat. So I don't know. Did he actually like unlock like Mark's like actual like
I don't
physical
think so.
powers?
I feel like he just gave himself that confidence.
That confidence needed. I didn't know if he was like actually like tapping into his...
No. I think he just got that confidence needed and realized like, you know, we have the same body. I can do what he does. And then he gave him that confidence to where he
smacked him around.
Mark. But he helped him so much that he saved Mark's life.
I know.
And of course, Steven
that was so sad.
I know.
Because Mark can't... dude, that part too, I can't imagine because Mark is looking helplessly at, you know, another person who's, I guess, dying. I don't know if dying is a word, but, you know, who he can't help. And that just hurts, man.
Oh, it hurts so bad. And seeing the relationship, because they go from, you know, disliking each other, feeling each other's useless, to loving each other as brothers. And I think that's great. which I loved. And then, of course, Mark and their scales balance, and he's able to pass into the field of the reeds. And we see there, and we got some like Southern music playing.
Bro, it's definitely Nebraska.
Definitely
well, I don't
Nebraska.
think they have Southern music in
But
Nebraska.
there's no mountains either. So,
dude, so like, I guess that just begs the question. I know we touched on it briefly before, but is there only room for one personality then? The minute like Steven falls off and like kind of ceases to exist, it balances. Even though there's still two hearts, right? There's still two hearts in the thing.
Yeah.
But it balances when there's only, as far as we know, for sure, one personality
what if
on board.
Mark hasn't created Jake yet? What if that'll be like the finale? Like at the end, he realizes that he needs to create a life to where he can live without the bearings of both Mark and Steven, what happened to them in the episodes of Moon Knight. And he creates Jake as this cabbie in New York who does this stuff, but he then soon realizes in maybe a second season that he needs to bring Mark back.
Wow.
That could be possible.
That'd be crazy. Or maybe he just wants to get away like from Khonshu or escape his problems. Maybe like the same way, but
that's possible.
Seeing, I guess it wouldn't be too late to. Would it be too late? How late would they like create a new personality?
I don't know. I don't feel like it. I mean, I feel like if you could do it once, you can do it again. So surely we can see Jake come out somehow. Or maybe, like I said, still unanswered question to the coffin and still unanswered question with a knife. So hopefully we'll see in the future episodes. But by far, episode 5, my favorite. Definitely so good. I would give this episode probably, I'll just straight up rating it. I'd probably give it like a 9.5 out of 10. Maybe higher. I don't know.
I say like 9.5.
Yeah, that was a great episode. So
Oscar Isaac, shout out, man.
Shout out, Oscar. Ethan Hawke too, man. Ethan Hawke killed it too.
Dude, I love Ethan Hawke's character so much.
He killed it. Both his characters now.
Yeah.
All right. But what an incredible episode. We cannot wait for the finale of Moon Knight next week, plus Multiverse of Madness.
Facts. All right, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know by giving us a review and a download. Be sure to check out our latest episode, Moon Knight episode 4, which is currently out on all podcast platforms. And our next episode will be next week on Thursday. All right. The finale.
That is
and then
correct. Multiverse of Madness will be on Tuesday.
It is. And then Multiverse of Madness will be on Tuesday. So we'll watch it early. We're going on that Thursday night. We'll break it down for y'all. So stay hyped, guys.
Stay super hyped. And we just want to thank y'all for listening. And as always, we love you 3000.